Hello, horror lover. Are you ready for a long night of nightmares? Before we begin, I want to ask you to subscribe to the channel, and especially leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I'd love to know. Click the like button, all of this because the rhythmic tapping of Amanda's heels echoed through the polished hallways of Blackwell Associates. Another late night at the office, but that's what it took to make partner in one of New York's top law firms. The clock on her desk read 9:47 p.m. as she pushed open the heavy oak door to her corner office, sighing as she placed her briefcase on the sleek mahogany desk. "Home, sweet home," she muttered, her sardonic tone lost in the empty room. Amanda's fingers moved automatically, loosening her tight bun and shaking out her long chestnut hair. She rolled her neck, wincing at the series of cracks that followed. 42 years old, and some days she felt ancient. Her eyes fell on a small brown package sitting innocuously on her desk. Frowning, she picked it up, turning it over in her hands. No return address, just her name and the office details in a neat, handwritten script. "What the hell?" she murmured, reaching for her letter opener. The package gave way easily, revealing a mass of bubble wrap. As Amanda peeled away the layers, her breath caught in her throat. Her heart skipped a beat as she unwrapped the final piece, revealing a small, worn teddy bear. "Mr. Snuggles?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The bear's button eyes stared back at her, one hanging by a thread, just as she remembered. Its fur was matted and gray with age, but there was no mistaking it. This was her childhood teddy bear lost over 3 decades ago. Amanda's hands shook as she held the stuffed animal. A flood of memories washed over her. Tea parties in her childhood bedroom, whispered secrets in the dark, tears soaked into its fur after her parents' fights. She hadn't thought about Mr. Snuggles in years, had convinced herself she didn't care about the silly toy anymore. So why did holding it now make her feel like that scared little girl all over again? A small white card fluttered to the floor. Amanda bent to pick it up, her designer skirt stretching uncomfortably. As she read the neatly printed words, confusion turned to dread, settling like a lead weight in her stomach. "Your time is almost up." "What the fuck?" Amanda hissed, dropping the bear as if it had burned her. She scrambled for her phone, punching in a familiar number. It rang 3 times before a groggy voice answered. "Amanda, it's almost 10. What's wrong?" "Mike, I need you to check the security footage for my office today. Someone left a package on my desk." Her assistant's voice sharpened, sleep falling away. "A package? What kind of package?" Amanda's eyes darted to the bear lying on her desk. Just check the footage, okay? I need to know who delivered it and when." "Okay, give me a few minutes. I'll access the system from home." The line went silent, and Amanda paced her office, heels clicking a frantic rhythm on the hardwood floor. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. Who would send her a childhood toy, and that note? Was it a threat? Her phone buzzed, and she nearly dropped it in her haste to answer. "What did you find?" Mike's voice was puzzled. "Amanda, there's nothing on the footage, no delivery, no one entering your office. The package just appears on your desk at 6:17 p.m. One frame it's not there, the next it is." A chill ran down Amanda's spine. "That's impossible. Check again." "I've gone through it 3 times. It's like it materialized out of thin air." Amanda ended the call, her mind whirling. She turned back to her desk, eyeing the bear warily. Part of her wanted to grab it, to clutch it to her chest like she used to as a child. The other part wanted to throw it out the window. Instead, she gingerly picked it up, along with the packaging, and shoved it all into her briefcase. Whatever was going on, she didn't want to leave any evidence behind. As she left her office, Amanda's eyes darted to every shadow, every corner. The familiar halls suddenly seemed sinister, hiding unseen threats. She jabbed the elevator button repeatedly, irrationally afraid that something would grab her before the doors opened. In the parking garage, she practically ran to her car, the click of the automatic locks providing little comfort. As she drove home, every red light felt like an eternity, every passing car a potential threat. By the time Amanda reached her Upper East Side apartment, she was a bundle of frayed nerves. She double-checked the locks, then headed straight for the bar, pouring herself a generous glass of scotch. The alcohol burned going down, but it did little to calm her racing thoughts. Amanda found herself pacing again, this time in her expansive living room, the city lights twinkling beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. "Get it together," she muttered to herself. "You're Amanda fucking Blackwell. You don't get rattled." But as her eyes fell on her briefcase, knowing what lay inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had fundamentally shifted. Her carefully constructed world felt suddenly fragile, like a house of cards ready to collapse. Amanda's phone rang, making her jump. She checked the caller ID, her mother. With a deep breath, she answered. "Hi, Mom." "Amanda, dear, I'm so glad I caught you. I was cleaning out the attic today and found some of your old things. I thought you might like to have them." Amanda's blood ran cold. What kind of things?" "Oh, some old school papers, a few books. Oh, and I could have sworn I found that old teddy bear of yours." "What did you call him? Mr. Snuggles?" The phone slipped from Amanda's nerveless fingers, clattering to the floor. She could hear her mother's voice, tinny and distant, calling her name. With shaking hands, Amanda retrieved her briefcase, pulling out the worn teddy bear. She stared at it, her mind refusing to accept what she was seeing. It was impossible. It couldn't be here, and yet... She brought the bear to her face, inhaling deeply. Beneath the musty smell of age, there was something else. A scent that transported her instantly to her childhood bedroom, her mother's perfume, the laundry detergent they used, the faint smell of her father's cigarettes. This was her bear, her Mr. Snuggles. But how? And more importantly, why? Amanda's legs gave out, and she sank to the floor, clutching the bear to her chest. Tears she didn't realize she was holding back began to fall, soaking into the matted fur just like they used to all those years ago. As the first light of dawn began to creep through her windows, Amanda was still sitting there, her mind racing with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. The bear in her arms was a tangible link to her past, but the note that came with it hinted at a future she wasn't sure she was ready to face. "Your time is almost up." The words echoed in her head, a sinister mantra that refused to be silenced. As she finally dragged herself to bed, exhaustion overtaking fear, one thought lingered. This was only the beginning. Amanda's eyes snapped open, her heart racing. For a moment she couldn't remember where she was. The soft morning light filtering through her bedroom curtains slowly brought reality into focus. She hadn't slept well, her dreams plagued by shadowy figures and lost memories. She reached for her phone, squinting at the screen. 7:23 a.m. Dozens of missed calls and messages from her mother. Amanda swiped them away, unable to deal with that particular complication just yet. As she swung her legs out of bed, her foot brushed against something soft. Mr. Snuggles lay on the floor where she'd dropped him in her exhausted stupor. Amanda recoiled, then forced herself to pick up the bear, stuffing it unceremoniously into her bedside drawer. "Out of sight, out of mind," she muttered, but the words rang hollow. An hour later, Amanda strode into her office, her power suit and perfect makeup a armor against the world. She'd almost convinced herself that last night had been some sort of stress-induced hallucination. "Morning, Amanda," Mike called cheerfully as she passed his desk. "Rough night?" Amanda paused, studying her assistant's face for any sign that he remembered their late-night phone call. There was nothing but his usual eager-to-please expression. "Nothing I can't handle," she replied curtly. "Hold my calls for the next hour. I need to prep for the Goldstein deposition." She'd barely settled at her desk when Mike's voice came through the intercom. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's a package here for you." "No courier. It was just sitting at my desk when I arrived." Amanda froze, her coffee mug halfway to her lips. "Bring it in," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Mike entered, holding a small brown package identical to the one from yesterday. He placed it on her desk, his brow furrowed with concern. Amanda, is everything okay? You seem off. She forced a smile. Just a bit under the weather. Nothing to worry about, that'll be all, Mike. As soon as the door closed behind him, Amanda's facade crumbled. She stared at the package, her hand shaking as she reached for it. Inside, nestled in bubble wrap, was a faded plastic card. Amanda's breath caught as she recognized her own young face smiling back at her. Her college ID card, lost during a drunken night out in her sophomore year. "This can't be happening," she whispered, a chill running down her spine. A white card, identical to yesterday's, lay beneath the ID. With trembling fingers, Amanda turned it over. "Remember who you were. Remember what you did." The words blurred as tears filled Amanda's eyes. Memories she'd long suppressed came flooding back. The wild parties, the questionable decisions, the people she'd stepped on in her relentless climb to the top. A knock at the door made her jump. "Come in," she called, hastily wiping her eyes. Mike poked his head in. "Your 9:30 is here. Should I send them in?" Amanda glanced at her watch, shocked to realize an hour had passed. "No, I need a minute. Tell them I'll be right out." As soon as Mike left, Amanda grabbed her phone, dialing a number she knew by heart. "Rachel, it's Amanda. I need to see you. Today. It's urgent." An hour later, Amanda sat in a quiet corner of a small cafe, her leg bouncing nervously under the table. The door chimed and she looked up to see Rachel, her best friend since college, approaching. "All right, spill," Rachel said as she slid into the booth. "What's got the great Amanda Blackwell so rattled?" Amanda took a deep breath, then poured out the whole story, the packages, the lost items, the cryptic notes. As she spoke, she watched Rachel's expression shift from skepticism to concern. "Amanda," Rachel said slowly when she'd finished. I don't even know what this is. Have you gone to the police?" Amanda shook her head. "And tell them what? Someone's returning my lost property with creepy notes? They'd laugh me out of the station. But the security footage proves nothing." Amanda cut her off. "For all I know, it's some elaborate prank. Or maybe I'm just losing my mind." Rachel reached across the table, squeezing Amanda's hand. "You're not losing your mind, but you can't just ignore this. What if it escalates?" "That's what I'm afraid of," Amanda whispered. As they left the cafe, Amanda felt a prickling sensation on the back of her neck. She whirled around, scanning the crowded street. "What is it?" Rachel asked, alarmed. "Nothing," Amanda muttered. "Just felt like someone was watching me." Back at the office, Amanda tried to lose herself in work, but her concentration was shot. Every time her phone buzzed, she flinched. Every knock at the door sent her heart racing. By late afternoon, she was a bundle of frayed nerves. As she prepared for a crucial client meeting, her hands shook so badly she could barely apply her lipstick. "Get it together," she hissed at her reflection. "You're Amanda fucking Blackwell. You eat Fortune 500 companies for breakfast. You do not fall apart over some stupid pranks." The pep talk worked for a while. Amanda sailed through the first half of the meeting, her trademark confidence and sharp wit on full display. But as she stood to deliver her closing arguments, a wave of dizziness washed over her. The room began to spin. Amanda gripped the edge of the table, trying to steady herself. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her chest tightened, each breath a struggle. "Ms. Blackwell, are you all right?" One of the clients stood, concern etched on his face. Amanda tried to nod, to say she was fine, but the panic was overwhelming. Black spots danced in her vision. She was dimly aware of voices calling her name, of hands guiding her to a chair. "I can't breathe," she gasped. I can't. The next thing she knew, she was in the back of an ambulance, an oxygen mask over her face. Mike sat beside her, his usually cheerful face drawn with worry. "What happened?" Amanda croaked, her throat raw. "You had a panic attack," Mike said gently. "The paramedics are taking you to the hospital just to be safe." Amanda closed her eyes, humiliation washing over her. 20 years of building her reputation, of being the unflappable, unstoppable Amanda Blackwell, and she'd just had a meltdown in front of a room full of clients. At the hospital, doctors ran tests, asked questions. Amanda answered mechanically, leaving out any mention of mysterious packages or childhood toys. Eventually, they chalked it up to stress and exhaustion, prescribing rest and follow-up with a therapist. As Amanda signed her discharge papers, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Her blood ran cold as she read the message. "Tick-tock, Amanda. The past is catching up. Are you ready to face it?" She dropped the phone as if it had burned her, earning a concerned look from the nurse. "Ms. Blackwell, is everything okay?" Amanda forced a smile, but it felt more like a grimace. "Fine. Everything's fine." But as she gathered her things to leave, Amanda knew nothing was fine. Whatever game this was, whatever twisted trip down memory lane someone was forcing her on, it was far from over. As she stepped out into the cool night air, Amanda felt exposed, vulnerable. The city she'd conquered, the life she'd built, suddenly, it all felt like a house of cards, ready to come crashing down at any moment. And somewhere out there, someone was watching, waiting, ready to send the next reminder of a past Amanda had tried so hard to forget. She hailed a cab, giving the driver her address. As the city lights blurred past the window, Amanda made a decision. No more running. No more hiding. Whatever was coming, she'd face it head on. Because if there was one thing Amanda Blackwell knew how to do, it was fight. And whoever was behind this was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The incessant beeping of her alarm clock jolted Amanda awake. She groaned, her head pounding from a restless night filled with fragmented nightmares. The digital display read 6:30 a.m. Despite the doctor's orders to rest, Amanda couldn't afford the luxury of a day off, not with the mess she'd left behind at yesterday's meeting. As she dragged herself out of bed, her phone buzzed. A text from Mike. "Hope you're feeling better. Don't worry about coming in early. I've rescheduled your morning appointments." Amanda sighed, a mix of relief and frustration washing over her. She appreciated Mike's thoughtfulness, but the idea of falling behind made her skin crawl. After a quick shower and a strong cup of coffee, Amanda felt almost human again. She was just about to leave when she noticed a small package sitting outside her apartment door. Her heart rate spiked, hands trembling as she picked it up. "Not again," she whispered, closing the door and leaning against it. With shaking fingers, Amanda tore open the package. Her hands trembled as she opened the third package, revealing her lost wedding ring. The platinum band glinted in the morning light, the 3-carat diamond as brilliant as the day James had proposed. Tears streamed down Amanda's face as she remembered the day she threw it into the ocean, vowing never to love again. It had been 5 years since the divorce. 5 years since she'd stood on that beach in the Hamptons, hurling the ring as far as she could into the churning waves. "This is impossible," she murmured, turning the ring over in her palm. A familiar white card fell from the package. Amanda's vision blurred as she read the message. "Some vows can't be broken. Some debts must be paid." Memories flooded back. The whirlwind romance, the lavish wedding, the slow disintegration of their marriage as Amanda's career took precedence over everything else. James's face on the day he'd finally had enough, a mixture of hurt and resignation etched into every line. Amanda slid down to the floor, clutching the ring to her chest. For the first time since this nightmare began, she allowed herself to truly break down, ugly sobs racking her body. When the storm of emotions finally passed, Amanda found herself reaching for her phone. Before she could second-guess herself, she dialed a number she thought she'd deleted years ago. It rang 4 times before a deep, familiar voice answered. "Hello?" Amanda's voice shook as she spoke. "James? It's Amanda." A long pause followed. "Amanda, is everything okay?" She almost laughed at the absurdity of the question. "No, not really. I know this is going to sound crazy, but are you behind this?" "Behind what?" James sounded genuinely confused. Amanda, what's going on? I've been receiving packages, she explained, her words tumbling out in a rush. Things I lost years ago. Today I got my wedding ring. Another pause, longer this time. When James spoke again, his voice was careful, measured. Amanda, I don't know what's going on, but I can assure you I'm not involved. I'm in London. Have been for the past month. Amanda's heart sank. Part of her had hoped, irrationally, that this was all some elaborate scheme of James's. At least then it would make sense. I'm sorry, she said softly. I shouldn't have called. I didn't know what else to do. James's tone softened. Hey, it's okay. You sound pretty shaken up. Do you want to talk about it? For a moment, Amanda was tempted. But old habits die hard. No, I'll figure it out. Thanks, James. Take care. She ended the call before he could respond, feeling more lost than ever. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Amanda went through the motions at work, her mind elsewhere. She was in the middle of a partners meeting when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Time's running out, Amanda. Are you ready to face your past? Amanda excused herself abruptly, ignoring the concerned looks from her colleagues. She barely made it to the bathroom before emptying the contents of her stomach. As she rinsed her mouth, staring at her pale reflection in the mirror, Amanda made a decision. She couldn't do this alone anymore. An hour later, she sat across from Derek Simmons, the best private investigator money could buy in New York City. So, let me get this straight, Derek said, leaning back in his chair. You've been receiving packages containing items you lost years ago, each with a cryptic, vaguely threatening note. And you want me to find out who's behind it? Amanda nodded, twisting the recovered wedding ring on her finger. I know how it sounds, but... Derek held up a hand. Ms. Blackwell, I've heard stranger things. What concerns me is the level of access this person seems to have. Your office, your home. Have you considered that it might be someone close to you? The thought had crossed Amanda's mind, but hearing it from someone else made it real in a way she wasn't prepared for. I don't know, she admitted. I can't think of anyone who would do this. Derek's eyes narrowed. Can't? Or won't? Ms. Blackwell, for me to help you, you need to be completely honest. Is there anyone, maybe from your past, who might have a reason to remind you of things you'd rather forget? Amanda's mind raced, flicking through faces, names, cases she'd won, people she'd stepped on to get where she was. There were too many possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. I've made enemies, she said slowly. In my line of work, it's unavoidable. But this feels personal. Derek nodded, jotting something in his notebook. All right, I'll need access to your office, your home, any security footage you have. And Ms. Blackwell, I'd advise you to be careful. Whoever's doing this, they're patient, methodical. This isn't some random prank. As Amanda left Derek's office, she felt a mix of relief and trepidation. Having someone else involved should have made her feel better, but instead, it only emphasized the reality of her situation. Back at her apartment, Amanda found herself jumping at every sound, peering around corners like a paranoid fool. She poured herself a generous glass of scotch, hoping to calm her frayed nerves. As she sipped the amber liquid, her eyes fell on a framed photo she kept hidden in a drawer. Her and James on their wedding day, both beaming at the camera, full of hope for the future. Amanda picked up the frame, tracing James's face with her finger. I'm sorry, she whispered to the smiling image. I'm so sorry for what I became. A sudden knock at the door made her jump, the frame slipping from her fingers and shattering on the hardwood floor. Heart pounding, Amanda approached the door, peering through the peephole. The hallway was empty. With shaking hands, she opened the door a crack, then wider as she saw what lay at her feet, another package. Amanda snatched it up, slamming the door and engaging every lock. She tore open the package, her breath catching as she pulled out a USB drive, Attached was the familiar white card, but this time the message sent a chill down her spine. The truth will set you free, Amanda. But first, it will destroy you. With trembling fingers, Amanda plugged the drive into her laptop. A single video file popped up. She clicked play, and as the footage began, her blood ran cold. It was security camera footage from her office, dated 5 years ago. Amanda watched in horror as her younger self shredded documents, deleted files, and made a phone call with a triumphant smirk. She remembered that day all too well. It was the day she'd buried evidence that would have exonerated an innocent man, ensuring her biggest client's victory in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. As the video ended, Amanda's phone buzzed with a text. "Still think you're untouchable, counselor? The game is just beginning." Amanda's legs gave out, and she sank to the floor, surrounded by the shards of her broken wedding photo. The life she'd built, the reputation she'd cultivated, it was all balanced on a knife's edge, and someone was about to push her off. The harsh fluorescent lights of Amanda's office cast long shadows as she hunched over her desk, surrounded by stacks of old case files. It was well past midnight, but sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford, not with the sword of Damocles hanging over her head. Her eyes burned as she flipped through another file, searching for what? A clue? A connection? She wasn't even sure anymore. The fourth package sat unopened on the corner of her desk, a ticking time bomb she couldn't bring herself to defuse just yet. A soft knock at the door made her jump. "Amanda?" Mike's concerned face peered around the door. "I thought I saw your light on. What are you doing here so late?" Amanda forced a smile that felt more like a grimace. "Just catching up on some old cases. You should go home, Mike. It's late." Mike hesitated, then stepped into the office. "Amanda, I'm worried about you. You've been acting strange ever since." He trailed off, clearly not wanting to mention her panic attack. "I'm fine," Amanda snapped, harsher than she intended. Seeing the hurt look on Mike's face, she softened her tone. "Really, I am. It's just been a stressful week." Mike nodded, unconvinced. "All right, but if you need anything, even just to talk, I'm here." As the door closed behind him, Amanda's facade crumbled. She buried her face in her hands, fighting back tears of frustration and fear. After a few moments, she took a deep breath and reached for the package. Her hands trembled as she unwrapped it, revealing her old diary from law school. "Oh, God," Amanda whispered, her blood running cold as she flipped through its pages. The diary contained detailed accounts of her early days as a lawyer, the corners she'd cut, the ethics she'd bent, the people she'd used to get ahead. It was a damning record of her ruthless ambition. A white card fell from between the pages. Amanda's heart raced as she read the now familiar handwriting. "Your past is written in ink. How will you rewrite your future?" Anger surged through her, temporarily overwhelming her fear. Whoever was doing this was toying with her, enjoying her pain and panic. "Enough," Amanda growled, slamming the diary shut. She turned back to the case files with renewed determination. There had to be a connection, something she was missing. Her eyes scanned document after document until a name caught her eye, sending a chill down her spine. Robert Chambers. Amanda's mind raced back to the case. Robert Chambers, a small-time accountant accused of embezzling millions from his company. She'd prosecuted him early in her career, building a reputation as a ruthless, win-at-all-costs lawyer. But there had been irregularities in the case, evidence that didn't quite add up, evidence that Amanda had chosen to ignore in her pursuit of victory. With shaking hands, Amanda pulled up the case file on her computer. As she read through it, memories came flooding back. The late nights, the pressure from the partners, the corners she'd cut to secure a conviction. And then she saw it. A note she'd made and then buried deep in the file. Possible exculpatory evidence in RC's home office. Do not pursue. Amanda felt the blood drain from her face. She'd known. She'd known there might be evidence proving Robert's innocence, and she'd deliberately ignored it. Before she could process the implications, her phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number. With a sense of dread, Amanda answered. Hello? Hello, Amanda. The voice was distorted, unrecognizable. Enjoying your trip down memory lane? Amanda's free hand clenched into a fist. Who is this? What do you want from me? A low chuckle came through the line. Oh, Amanda, I want what you've always feared, the truth. And soon, everyone will know it. The line went dead. Amanda stared at the phone, her mind reeling. She needed answers, and she knew there was only one place to get them. An hour later, Amanda found herself in the sterile visitors' room of Sing Sing Correctional Facility. Her heart pounded as she waited, rehearsing what she'd say. The door buzzed, and Robert Chambers shuffled in, looking older and more haggard than she remembered. His eyes widened in surprise as he saw her. Well, well, he said, his voice rough from disuse. If it isn't the great Amanda Blackwell, to what do I owe this pleasure? Amanda leaned forward, her voice low and urgent. Mr. Chambers, I need to know if you're behind this. The packages, the threats. Robert's brow furrowed in confusion. Packages? Threats? I have no idea what you're talking about, counselor. Don't play games with me, Amanda hissed. Someone is digging up my past, sending me things I lost years ago. They know about your case, about... She hesitated, then plunged ahead. About the evidence I ignored. Robert's expression hardened. So you finally admit it. After all these years, you finally acknowledge what you did to me. Amanda felt a wave of shame wash over her. I'm sorry. I was young, ambitious. I convinced myself that the end justified the means. Sorry? Robert's laugh was bitter. Sorry doesn't give me back the last 10 years of my life. Sorry doesn't restore my reputation, my family, my future. I know, Amanda said softly. But I'm trying to make it right. Someone is threatening to expose everything. If you're not behind it, then who is? Robert studied her for a long moment, his eyes unreadable. Finally, he spoke. I may be in here, counselor, but I still have friends on the outside, friends who believe in justice. Amanda's blood ran cold. What are you saying? A slow, knowing smirk spread across Robert's face. I'm saying that karma's a bitch, and she's coming for you, Amanda Blackwell. As Amanda left the prison, his words echoed in her mind. She felt eyes watching her from every shadow, her paranoia reaching new heights. Back in her car, Amanda sat for a long moment, trying to gather her thoughts. She jumped as her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. How did your reunion go? Ready to face the music yet? Amanda's hands shook as she started the car. Whoever was behind this, they were always one step ahead. She felt like a mouse in a maze, running frantically while some unseen presence watched and laughed. As she drove back to the city, Amanda's mind raced. If Robert wasn't directly behind this, then who was? And how did they know so much? She thought about the other cases she'd worked on over the years, the other ethical lines she'd crossed. How many more Robert Chambers were out there waiting for their chance at revenge? Amanda's phone rang, startling her. It was Derek, the private investigator. Ms. Blackwell, he said without preamble. I think I've found something. Can you meet me at my office in an hour? I'll be there, Amanda replied, a mix of hope and dread churning in her stomach. As she navigated through the late-night traffic, Amanda couldn't shake the feeling that she was driving towards a reckoning. Years of ambition of putting victory above all else had led her to this moment. She thought about the young, idealistic law student she'd once been, the one who'd written so earnestly in that diary about justice and doing what was right. When had that woman disappeared, replaced by the ruthless lawyer she'd become? As she pulled up to Derek's office, Amanda made a decision. Whatever he'd found, whatever was coming, she would face it head on. No more running, no more hiding. It was time to confront her past and accept the consequences of her actions, because if she didn't, she knew with chilling certainty that her tormentor would do it for her. With a deep breath, Amanda stepped out of the car and walked towards the building, ready to face whatever revelations awaited her. The game, as Robert had said, was just beginning, and Amanda was determined to see it through to the bitter end. Amanda's heels clicked against the polished floor of her apartment building's lobby, the sound echoing in the early morning quiet. She'd barely slept after her meeting with Derek, her mind racing with the information he'd uncovered. As she approached the elevator, a flicker of movement caught her eye. The night doorman, usually stationed at his desk, was bent over something near the mailboxes. As Amanda drew closer, she realized he was placing a small brown package in her slot. "Hey!" she called out, her voice sharp with sudden suspicion. The man startled, dropping the package. As he turned, Amanda caught a glimpse of a face she didn't recognize before he bolted for the service exit. Heart pounding, Amanda snatched up the package. This was it, the first real lead she had. Without thinking, she took off after the man, bursting through the service door into the alley behind her building. The cool morning air hit her like a slap, but Amanda barely noticed. She scanned the alley, catching sight of a figure disappearing around the corner. She gave chase, her designer heels completely impractical for pursuit, but her determination driving her forward. As she rounded the corner, she found herself in a maze of back alleys and service entrances. The man was nowhere in sight. Cursing under her breath, Amanda leaned against a wall, trying to catch her breath. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. With shaking hands, she pulled it out to find a text from an unknown number. "Nice try, counselor, but you're not as fast as you used to be. Better open your gift before it's too late." A chill ran down Amanda's spine. Whoever was behind this, they were watching her right now. She glanced around frantically, suddenly feeling exposed in the narrow alley. With nowhere else to go, Amanda hurried back to her apartment. She hesitated at the door, half expecting to find an intruder inside. But the apartment was quiet, undisturbed. She placed the package on her coffee table, staring at it as if it might explode. After a moment's hesitation, she tore it open. Inside was a USB drive, sleek and innocuous. Amanda's hands trembled as she plugged it into her laptop. A single video file popped up. With a deep breath, Amanda clicked play. The screen filled with grainy security camera footage. Amanda recognized her office, but the timestamp showed a date from 5 years ago. She watched as her younger self entered the frame, looking furtive. On screen, Amanda moved to her computer, typing furiously. Then she pulled out a file, leafing through it before selecting several pages. Amanda's breath caught as she watched herself feed the pages into a shredder. "Oh God," Amanda whispered, remembering that day all too well. It was the Hernandez case, a pro bono she'd taken on to boost the firm's image. She'd discovered evidence that would have exonerated her client, but it would have meant going up against one of the firm's biggest corporate clients. So she'd buried it, ensuring her path to partner. As the video ended, a message flashed across the screen. "The truth will set you free, Amanda, but first it will destroy you." Amanda sat back, her mind reeling. This was it. Irrefutable evidence of her misdeeds. If this got out, it wouldn't just be her career on the line. She could face disbarment, even criminal charges. Her phone rang, startling her out of her spiral. It was Rachel, her best friend since college. "Hey, Rach," Amanda answered, trying to keep her voice steady. "Amanda, are you okay? You sound terrible." Amanda hesitated. She'd been carrying this burden alone, terrified of letting anyone in. But the weight of it all was crushing her. I'm not okay, Rach. Can you come over? I need to talk to someone." An hour later, Rachel sat on Amanda's couch, her face a mask of shock as Amanda poured out the whole story, the packages, the threats, the evidence of her past misdeeds. "Oh, Amanda," Rachel breathed when she'd finished. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? It's insane." Amanda laughed bitterly. "Because I was ashamed, because I thought I could handle it on my own, because..." She trailed off, then admitted in a small voice, "Because I was afraid you'd look at me the way you're looking at me now." Rachel's expression softened. "Amanda, I'm your friend. I'm here for you, no matter what. But this is serious. You need to go to the police." Amanda shook her head vehemently. I can't. If this gets out, I'm finished. Everything I've worked for, gone in an instant. And if you don't? Rachel countered. Whoever's doing this, they're not going to stop. You're living in fear, Amanda. That's no way to exist. Before Amanda could respond, her phone buzzed with another text. Time's running out, counselor. TikTok. Amanda showed the message to Rachel, her hands shaking. Rachel's eyes widened. Amanda, this is serious. You're being stalked, threatened. You need protection. What I need, Amanda said, standing abruptly, is to end this. On my terms. She moved to her desk, pulling out a legal pad. I'm going to make a list of everyone who might have a reason to do this. Former clients, opposing counsel, people I've wronged over the years. Rachel watched her with concern. And then what? Then I confront them, Amanda said, her jaw set with determination. One by one if I have to. I'll apologize, make amends, whatever it takes to make this stop. Amanda, that's crazy. It could be dangerous. More dangerous than waiting for the other shoe to drop, for my entire life to come crashing down around me? Amanda shook her head. I can't live like this anymore, Rach. I need to take control. Rachel stood, moving to Amanda's side. Then let me help. We'll do this together. Amanda felt a lump form in her throat. After weeks of isolation and fear, the offer of support nearly broke her. Okay, she whispered, nodding. Together. As they bent over the legal pad, compiling names and connections, Amanda felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. Whatever was coming, she wouldn't face it alone. But as night fell and Rachel prepared to leave, Amanda couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get much worse before they got better. Be careful, Rachel said as she hugged Amanda goodbye, and call me if anything happens, day or night. Amanda nodded, forcing a smile. I will. And Rach? Thank you. For everything. As the door closed behind Rachel, Amanda leaned against it, suddenly exhausted. The list they'd compiled was long, filled with names of people she'd wronged, betrayed, or simply steamrolled on her path to success. She moved to her bedroom, intending to get some much-needed rest. But as she entered, she froze. There, on her pillow, sat another small brown package. Amanda's breath caught in her throat. She'd been with Rachel all afternoon. How had this gotten here? With trembling hands, she opened the package. Inside was a single sheet of paper. As she read it, Amanda felt the floor drop out from beneath her. It was a detailed account of every conversation she'd had with Rachel that afternoon, including direct quotes. At the bottom, in now familiar handwriting, was a message that made Amanda's blood run cold. Trust no one, Amanda, especially those closest to you. The betrayal has only just begun. Amanda sank to the floor, the paper clutched in her shaking hands. The one person she thought she could trust. The one ally she had in all of this. As the full weight of her isolation crashed down on her, Amanda finally allowed herself to break down, her sobs echoing in the empty apartment. The game had taken a dark turn, and Amanda was more alone than ever. The first rays of sunlight crept through Amanda's bedroom window, finding her still huddled on the floor, the damning piece of paper clutched in her hand. She hadn't slept, her mind a whirlwind of paranoia and betrayal. The thought that Rachel, her oldest friend, could be involved in this twisted game was almost too much to bear. With stiff muscles protesting, Amanda pulled herself up. She caught sight of her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back at her. Dark circles under bloodshot eyes, hair disheveled, clothes rumpled from a night spent on the floor. This wasn't the polished, confident Amanda Blackwell the world knew. This was a woman on the edge. As if on cue, her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Hey, how are you holding up? Want to grab coffee before work? Amanda's hand trembled as she typed out a response. Not feeling well. Staying home today. She tossed the phone aside, unable to deal with the possibility of her friend's betrayal. Instead, she focused on getting ready for work. No matter what chaos her personal life was in, she couldn't afford to show weakness at the office. An hour later, Amanda strode into Blackwell Associates, her armor of designer suit and perfect makeup firmly in place. But as she made her way to her office, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Conversations stopped abruptly as she passed. Colleagues averted their eyes or gave her strange looks. "Amanda?" Mike's voice made her jump. "There's been a call from the Bar Association. They've scheduled a disciplinary hearing for next week. They wouldn't tell me what it's about, but it sounded serious." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Amanda gripped the edge of Mike's desk to steady herself. "What? Why wasn't I notified directly?" Mike shifted uncomfortably. "They said they've been trying to reach you for days. Your phone's been going straight to voicemail." Amanda's mind raced. She'd been so focused on the mysterious packages that she'd been ignoring calls from unknown numbers. A rookie mistake that could cost her everything. "Thanks, Mike," she managed to say. "Hold my calls. I need to deal with this." In her office, Amanda sank into her chair, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. She reached for her phone with shaking hands, dialing the Bar Association's number. "This is Amanda Blackwell," she said when the receptionist answered. "I understand there's been a complaint filed against me?" "Yes, Ms. Blackwell," the receptionist replied, her tone clipped and professional. "We've received multiple complaints alleging ethical violations and misconduct. The disciplinary committee will review the evidence at next week's hearing." Amanda's blood ran cold. "Multiple complaints? What kind of evidence?" "I'm not at liberty to discuss the details, Ms. Blackwell. You'll receive a formal notice with all the information. Good day." The line went dead, leaving Amanda staring at the phone in disbelief. This was it. The other shoe had finally dropped. A knock at her door startled her out of her stupor. "Come in," she called, quickly composing herself. Sarah Chen, one of the firm's rising star associates, entered hesitantly. "Ms. Blackwell, I'm sorry to bother you, but there's something you need to see." She handed Amanda a tablet opened to a legal blog. The headline made Amanda's stomach drop. Exclusive. Top NYC lawyer. Amanda Blackwell accused of evidence tampering and ethical violations. The article detailed allegations spanning years, complete with quotes from anonymous sources within the firm. As Amanda scrolled through, she felt the walls closing in around her. "It's all over social media," Sarah said softly. "Everyone's talking about it." Amanda looked up, seeing not judgment in Sarah's eyes, but fear. Fear of what this meant for the firm, for everyone's careers. "Thank you, Sarah," Amanda said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Please keep this to yourself for now. I'll address the firm once I've spoken with the partners." As Sarah left, Amanda's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "How does it feel, counselor? To watch your carefully constructed life crumble around you?" Anger surged through Amanda, temporarily overriding her fear. She typed back furiously, "Who are you? What do you want from me?" The response came almost immediately. "Justice, truth, retribution, take your pick. The game is almost over, Amanda. Are you ready for the final act?" Before Amanda could respond, her office door burst open. Jack Blackwell, her uncle and founding partner of the firm, stormed in, his face a mask of fury. "What the hell is going on, Amanda?" he demanded, slamming a printout of the blog post on her desk. "Do you have any idea what this could do to the firm?" Amanda stood, her legs unsteady. "Uncle Jack, I can explain." "Explain?" He cut her off. "Explain how years of our hard work, our reputation is being dragged through the mud because of your actions? The partners are calling for an emergency meeting. Your future at this firm is on the line." As if on cue, Amanda's phone rang. The caller ID showed Rachel. With a sinking feeling, Amanda answered, putting it on speaker. "Amanda?" Rachel's voice was tight with worry. "Are you okay? I just saw the news." "Don't," Amanda interrupted, her voice cold. "Don't pretend you care. I know you're involved in this somehow." There was a pause. Then Rachel's voice came back, confused and hurt. What are you talking about? Amanda, I'm your friend. I would never... Save it, Amanda snapped. I trusted you and you betrayed me. Was it worth it? Did they pay you well for your information? Amanda, you're not making any sense, Rachel pleaded. Please, let me help you. Amanda ended the call, turning back to her uncle. Jack was staring at her, a mix of anger and concern on his face. What's happening to you, Amanda? He asked, his voice softer now. This isn't like you. Amanda laughed bitterly. Isn't it? Isn't this exactly who I am? The ruthless lawyer who'd do anything to win? Well, congratulations, Uncle Jack. You got what you wanted. The perfect protege, willing to cross any line to get ahead. Jack recoiled as if slapped. I never asked you to break the law, to compromise your ethics. You didn't have to, Amanda shouted, years of pent-up resentment bubbling to the surface. It was always there, unspoken but understood. Win at all costs. That's the Blackwell way, isn't it? Before Jack could respond, Amanda's computer chimed with a new email. She glanced at the screen and froze. It was from the same anonymous sender, but this time there was an attachment. With a sense of dread, Amanda opened the file. It was a video showing her in her office years ago, shredding documents and deleting files. The same footage from the USB drive, but now it was being sent to every partner in the firm. Jack watched in horror as the evidence of Amanda's misconduct played out on the screen. When it ended, he turned to her, his face ashen. Amanda, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. What have you done? Amanda sank into her chair, the fight draining out of her. What you taught me to do, Uncle Jack. Whatever it takes to win. Jack shook his head, backing away from her desk. The partners will want your resignation. Clean out your office, Amanda. You're done here. As the door closed behind him, Amanda's phone buzzed one last time. Another text from the unknown number. Check your personal email. The final package has been delivered. It's time to face the music, counselor. With trembling hands, Amanda opened her personal email on her phone. There, in her inbox, was an email with dozens of attachments, each one a piece of evidence of her misdeeds over the years. And it wasn't just sent to her. The email was CC'd to the district attorney's office, the Bar Association, and every major news outlet in the city. As the full weight of her situation crashed down on her, Amanda felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. It was over. Everything she'd worked for, everything she'd sacrificed her integrity for, was gone in an instant. She stood, looking around the office that had been her home for so many years. The view of the city skyline that she'd fought so hard to earn now seemed to mock her. As she began to pack her things, Amanda realized that this was just the beginning. The criminal charges, the public humiliation, the loss of her license, it was all still to come. But for the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of something unexpected. Relief. The game was over. And though she had lost everything, Amanda Blackwell was finally free from the web of lies and deceit she had woven around herself. As she walked out of Blackwell Associates for the last time, she steeled herself for what was to come. The road ahead would be hard, but it was a road to redemption. And that, she realized, was worth more than any corner office or prestigious title. The unraveling was complete. Now the real work of rebuilding could begin. The incessant pounding on her apartment door jolted Amanda awake. She blinked, disoriented, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings of her living room. Empty wine bottles littered the coffee table, a testament to her attempts to numb the pain of the past few days. Amanda, open up. I know you're in there. Rachel's voice, muffled but insistent, cut through the fog in Amanda's mind. She groaned, pushing herself up from the couch, her head throbbing in protest. Go away, Rachel, she called out, her voice hoarse. I have nothing to say to you. There was a pause. Then Rachel's voice came again, softer this time. Please, Amanda, I'm worried about you. Let me help. Something in her tone, concern, Fear, or perhaps a hint of desperation, made Amanda hesitate. Against her better judgment, she shuffled to the door and opened it. Rachel stood there, her usually impeccable appearance disheveled, dark circles under her eyes mirroring Amanda's own. "Oh, Amanda," she breathed, taking in her friend's haggard appearance. "What's happened to you?" Amanda laughed bitterly, turning away and walking back into the apartment. "What's happened? My life is in ruins, Rachel. My career is over. I'm facing criminal charges and you betrayed me." Rachel followed her in, closing the door behind her. "Betrayed you?" "Amanda, I've been trying to reach you for days. I had no idea what was going on until I saw the news. How could you think I'd do this to you?" Amanda whirled around, anger flaring. "Don't lie to me. I saw the transcript, Rachel. Every word of our conversation right there in black and white. You were the only one who knew everything." Rachel's eyes widened in shock. "What transcript?" "Amanda, I swear I have no idea what you're talking about. Please just talk to me. Tell me what's been going on." For a moment, Amanda wavered. The sincerity in Rachel's voice, the genuine confusion in her eyes. Could she have been wrong? Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Time to face your past, counselor. Check the news." With shaking hands, Amanda grabbed the remote and turned on the TV. The screen flickered to life, showing a breaking news report. In a shocking turn of events, the anchor was saying, prominent defense attorney Robert Chambers has been released from Sing Sing Correctional Facility today. New evidence has come to light suggesting that Chambers was wrongfully convicted in a case prosecuted by disgraced lawyer Amanda Blackwell. The remote slipped from Amanda's numb fingers, clattering to the floor. Rachel turned to her, confusion etched on her face. "Amanda? What's going on? Who's Robert Chambers?" Amanda sank onto the couch, her legs no longer able to support her. "He was one of my first big cases," she whispered. I knew he was innocent, but a conviction would fast-track my career, so I buried the evidence that would have exonerated him." Rachel gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh, Amanda, what have you done?" Before Amanda could respond, her phone rang. "Unknown number." With a sense of dread, she answered, putting it on speaker. "Hello, Amanda." The voice was familiar, but it took her a moment to place it. "Remember me?" Amanda's blood ran cold. "Robert?" A dark chuckle came through the line. "Got it in one, counselor. Did you enjoy my little game? The walks down memory lane?" "It was you," Amanda breathed. "All of it. The packages, the threats." "Justice," Robert cut in, his voice hard. "That's what you lawyers are all about, isn't it? Well, I decided it was time you got a taste of your own medicine. How does it feel, Amanda? To watch your life crumble around you? To lose everything you've worked for?" Amanda's mind raced, pieces falling into place. "But how? You were in prison. The security footage, the access to my office. You'd be surprised how many friends a wrongfully convicted man can make on the inside," Robert said. "Guards, other inmates with connections on the outside. It wasn't hard to find people willing to help take down the woman who ruined my life." Rachel, who had been listening in shocked silence, finally spoke up. "This is insane. You can't just destroy someone's life like this." Robert laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Can't I? Isn't that exactly what she did to me? 10 years, counselor. 10 years of my life gone. My family, my career, my reputation, all destroyed because you wanted a gold star on your record." Amanda felt tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "God, Robert, I'm so sorry. I know it doesn't change anything, but I truly am sorry for what I did to you." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Robert spoke again, his voice was quieter, but no less intense. "You're right. It doesn't change anything, but it's a start." "What do you want from me?" Amanda asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "The truth," Robert replied. All of it. I want you to confess to everything you've done. Every case you've manipulated, every innocent person you've helped convict. It's time to come clean, Amanda. Amanda closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her sins pressing down on her. And if I do? What then? Then it's over, Robert said simply. No more games, no more threats. You face the consequences of your actions, and I get to move on with my life. Rachel, who had been listening with growing horror, finally intervened. Amanda, you can't seriously be considering this. You need to talk to a lawyer, figure out your options. No, Amanda cut her off, a strange calm settling over her. No more lawyers, no more lies. She took a deep breath, then spoke directly into the phone. Okay, Robert, you win. I'll do it. I'll confess to everything. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Then, good. There's a press conference scheduled for tomorrow morning at the courthouse steps. I think you know what to do. The line went dead, leaving Amanda and Rachel in stunned silence. Rachel was the first to speak. Amanda, think about what you're doing. This will destroy you. There has to be another way. There isn't, Amanda said, her voice steady for the first time in days. This is the only way to make things right. I've spent my entire career twisting the truth, manipulating the system. It's time I face the consequences. She stood, moving to the window. The New York skyline stretched out before her, the city she'd once thought she owned now seeming vast and indifferent to her plight. I need your help, Rachel, Amanda said, turning back to her friend. One last time. Will you stand with me tomorrow? Rachel hesitated, then nodded, tears in her eyes. Of course, always. As night fell over the city, Amanda sat at her desk, pen in hand. Page after page, she wrote out every misdeed, every ethical violation, every life she'd ruined in her relentless pursuit of success. It was cathartic in a way, finally letting go of the secrets she'd carried for so long. When she finally finished, the sky was beginning to lighten with the first hints of dawn. Amanda stood, stretching her stiff muscles, and made her way to the bathroom. She stared at her reflection, barely recognizing the woman looking back at her. Gone was the polished, confident lawyer who had taken New York by storm. In her place was a woman laid bare, stripped of her pretenses and masks. As she washed her face and prepared for the day ahead, Amanda felt a strange sense of peace settling over her. The game was over. She had lost everything. Her career, her reputation, likely her freedom. But as she donned a simple black suit, forgoing her usual power accessories, Amanda realized she had gained something far more valuable, the chance at redemption. As she left her apartment for what might be the last time, Amanda took one final look around. The trappings of her success, the expensive art, the designer furniture, suddenly seemed hollow and meaningless. Rachel was waiting for her in the lobby, her face a mix of concern and support. Are you sure about this? She asked, as they stepped out into the morning light. Amanda nodded, squaring her shoulders. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. As they made their way to the courthouse, Amanda's phone buzzed one last time. A final message from Robert. Good luck, counselor. Make it count. Amanda smiled, a small, sad quirk of her lips. She deleted the message and turned off her phone. Whatever happened next, she would face it on her own terms. The courthouse steps loomed before her, a sea of reporters and cameras waiting. Amanda took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her confession in her bag. Ready? Rachel asked, squeezing her hand. Amanda nodded, her voice steady as she replied, Ready. Together they climbed the steps, ready to face whatever consequences awaited. As the cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions, Amanda felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The truth, she realized, really would set her free. The courthouse steps were a sea of flashing cameras and shouting reporters. Amanda stood at the podium, her hands gripping the edges tightly to stop them from shaking. Rachel stood just behind her, a silent pillar of support. Thank you all for coming, Amanda began. her voice steady despite the turmoil in her gut. "I have a statement to make, after which I will not be taking any questions." She took a deep breath, unfolding the pages of her confession. The murmur of the crowd died down as she began to speak. "My name is Amanda Blackwell, and for the past 15 years I have been living a lie. I have manipulated evidence, coerced witnesses, and knowingly prosecuted innocent people, all in the pursuit of victory and personal gain." A collective gasp went up from the assembled crowd. Amanda pressed on, her voice gaining strength as she continued. "I stand before you today to confess to my crimes and to face the consequences of my actions. I have prepared a detailed account of every case I have compromised, every ethical line I have crossed. This document will be submitted to the District Attorney's Office and the Bar Association immediately following this statement." As Amanda continued her confession, detailing case after case of misconduct, the crowd's reaction shifted from shock to outrage. Shouts of, "How could you?" and "Lock her up," began to ring out. Rachel leaned in, whispering urgently, "Amanda, maybe we should wrap this up. The crowd is getting hostile." But Amanda shook her head, determined to see it through. "I know that my actions have caused immeasurable harm to countless individuals and their families. To Robert Chambers and all the others whose lives I've ruined, I can only offer my deepest, most sincere apologies. I know it's not enough, but I hope that by coming clean now I can begin to make amends." As she finished her statement, the crowd erupted into chaos. Reporters shouted questions, photographers jostled for better angles, and angry onlookers hurled insults. Suddenly, a figure broke through the police barricade. "You ruined my life!" a man shouted, lunging towards Amanda. Security guards intercepted him just before he reached the podium, but not before Amanda recognized him. Mark Jeffries, a man she'd helped convict 5 years ago on shaky evidence. As security ushered Amanda and Rachel back into the courthouse, the angry shouts of the crowd followed them. Inside, they found themselves face to face with District Attorney Elena Rodriguez, her expression a mix of shock and fury. "My office. Now!" Elena snapped, turning on her heel and striding down the hallway. Once inside, Elena rounded on Amanda. "Do you have any idea what you've just done? The chaos you've unleashed?" Amanda nodded, her composure finally starting to crack. "I do. And I'm prepared to face the consequences." Elena shook her head in disbelief. "It's not just about you anymore, Amanda. Do you realize how many cases this throws into question? How many convictions might be overturned? The public's trust in the justice system is going to be shattered." "I know," Amanda said softly. "But isn't that better than perpetuating a lie? Than keeping innocent people behind bars?" Elena sighed heavily, sinking into her chair. "I've already got calls coming in from the mayor's office, the governor, even the attorney general. This is going to be a media circus like we've never seen." As if on cue, Amanda's phone exploded with notifications. News alerts, missed calls, text messages. Her confession was already making waves. Rachel, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "What happens next?" Elena fixed Amanda with a hard stare. "You'll be taken into custody, of course. The charges against you are numerous and serious. Tampering with evidence, perjury, obstruction of justice. You're looking at significant prison time, Amanda." Amanda nodded, a strange sense of relief washing over her. "I understand. I'm ready." As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. 2 police officers entered, their faces grim. "Amanda Blackwell," one of them said, "you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." As the officer continued reading her rights, Amanda felt the cold metal of handcuffs closing around her wrists. She caught Rachel's eye, seeing tears streaming down her friend's face. "It's okay," Amanda mouthed, trying to smile reassuringly. As the officers led her out, Elena called after her, "For what it's worth, Amanda, it took guts to do what you did today. Misguided as your actions were, coming clean like this, it's something." Amanda nodded in acknowledgement as she was led away. The halls of the courthouse, once her domain, now felt alien and hostile. Lawyers and clerks she'd known for years stared openly, their expressions a mix of shock, disgust, and pity. Outside, the media frenzy had only intensified. As Amanda was led to the waiting police car, reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, and onlookers jeered. It was a gauntlet of noise and chaos, but Amanda kept her head high, refusing to cower. Just as she was about to be placed in the car, a familiar voice cut through the din. "Amanda." She turned to see Robert Chambers pushing through the crowd. The police officers tensed, but Robert stopped a few feet away, his eyes locked on Amanda's. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Robert said, his voice carrying clearly despite the noise around them, "Thank you for telling the truth." Amanda felt tears pricking at her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Robert. For everything." He nodded, his expression unreadable. "I know. Good luck, counselor. You're going to need it." As Amanda was placed in the back of the police car, she caught one last glimpse of the world she was leaving behind. Rachel, tears streaming down her face. Elena, her expression a mix of anger and respect. Robert, standing tall and free for the first time in a decade. And beyond them, the steps of the courthouse where she'd won so many victories. Victories that now felt hollow and tainted. The car pulled away, sirens blaring as it cut through the sea of media vehicles and onlookers. Amanda leaned back, closing her eyes. The adrenaline of the morning was wearing off, leaving her feeling drained and vulnerable. At the precinct, the booking process was a blur of fingerprints, mugshots, and procedural questions. Amanda answered mechanically, her mind elsewhere. It wasn't until she was led to a holding cell that the reality of her situation truly hit her. The cell door clanged shut behind her, the sound echoing with a chilling finality. Amanda sank onto the hard bench, burying her face in her hands. For the first time since this ordeal began, she allowed herself to truly break down, her body shaking with silent sobs. Hours passed. Amanda lost track of time in the windowless cell. Eventually, the door opened and a guard appeared. "Blackwell, your lawyer's here." Amanda looked up, confused. "I didn't call a lawyer." The guard shrugged. "Well, someone did. Come on." She was led to an interview room where a familiar face waited. Jack Blackwell, her uncle and former boss. "Uncle Jack?" Amanda said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" Jack's face was a mask of conflicting emotions. Anger, disappointment, concern. Trying to save what's left of your life, and the firm's reputation. "Do you have any idea the damage you've done?" Amanda sank into the chair across from him. "I know. I'm sorry for dragging the firm into this." Jack waved off her apology. "It's done now. The question is, how do we move forward? The DA's office is out for blood. They're talking about making an example of you." "I don't want to fight this, Uncle Jack," Amanda said softly. "I did what I did. I'll face the consequences." Jack leaned forward, his voice intense. "Listen to me, Amanda. I know you think you're doing the noble thing here, but you're not just hurting yourself. Every case you've ever touched is now under scrutiny. The entire legal system in this city is in chaos because of your confession." Amanda met his gaze steadily. "Maybe it needs to be. Maybe this is the wake-up call the system needs to address its flaws." Jack sat back, shaking his head. "You always were idealistic beneath that ruthless exterior. But this isn't a movie, Amanda. There's no happy ending here. You're looking at serious time." "I know," Amanda said, "and I'm prepared for that." Jack studied her for a long moment, then sighed heavily. "All right. If you're sure about this, I'll do what I can to negotiate a plea deal. But Amanda, are you absolutely certain this is what you want?" Amanda nodded, feeling a strange sense of peace settling over her. "I am. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm doing the right thing." As Jack gathered his things to leave, he paused at the door. "You know, despite everything, I'm proud of you, Amanda. It takes courage to face the truth like this." Amanda felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you, Uncle Jack, for everything." As the guard led her back to her cell, Amanda's mind was racing. The road ahead would be hard. She harbored no illusions about that. But as she settled back onto the hard bench, she felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The truth was out. The game was over. And whatever came next, Amanda Blackwell was finally free from the web of lies she'd woven around herself. As she closed her eyes, exhaustion finally overtaking her, she allowed herself a small smile. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years it was honest, and that, she realized, was worth more than any corner office or prestigious title she'd ever held. The harsh fluorescent lights of the courtroom buzzed overhead as Amanda stood, her legs shaky, to hear the verdict. The past months had been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media frenzy, and soul-searching. Now, finally, it was time to face the music. Judge Harriet Simmons, a stern woman with steel gray hair and piercing blue eyes, looked down at Amanda from the bench. "Ms. Blackwell, please rise for the verdict." Amanda stood, her heart pounding. She could feel the eyes of everyone in the courtroom boring into her back. Rachel, sitting in the front row, gave her an encouraging nod. "Amanda Blackwell," Judge Simmons began, her voice echoing in the silent courtroom, "on the charges of tampering with evidence, perjury, and obstruction of justice. This court finds you guilty on all counts." A collective gasp went up from the spectators. Amanda closed her eyes, letting the weight of the words wash over her. She had known this was coming, had prepared herself for it. But the finality of the moment still hit her like a physical blow. "Ms. Blackwell," the judge continued, "your actions have not only betrayed the trust placed in you as an officer of the court, but have also undermined the very foundations of our justice system. The lives you have ruined, the families you have torn apart cannot be easily mended." Amanda nodded, accepting the judge's words. She had spent countless nights reliving every case, every decision that had led her to this moment. "However," Judge Simmons said, her tone softening slightly, "this court also recognizes your voluntary confession and your cooperation with the authorities in rectifying the wrongs you have committed. These actions, while not excusing your crimes, do speak to a desire for redemption." Amanda's head snapped up, her eyes meeting the judge's for the first time. There was a hint of, was it compassion in those steely blue eyes? "Taking all factors into consideration, this court sentences you to 10 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole after 7 years. Additionally, you are hereby disbarred and prohibited from practicing law in any capacity for life." The gavel came down with a resounding crack, sealing Amanda's fate. As the bailiff moved to take her into custody, she turned to look at Rachel one last time. Her friend's face was a mask of tears and anguish, but she managed a small, brave smile. "It's okay," Amanda mouthed, trying to project a confidence she didn't entirely feel. As she was led out of the courtroom, the cacophony of shouted questions from reporters and the murmur of the spectators faded away. Amanda felt as if she were moving through a dream, disconnected from the reality around her. The processing at the prison was a blur of forms, medical checks, and stern instructions. It wasn't until Amanda found herself alone in her cell, staring at the bare concrete walls, that the full weight of her new reality crashed down on her. She sank onto the thin mattress, burying her face in her hands. For the first time since her confession, Amanda allowed herself to truly break down, her body shaking with silent sobs. Hours passed, or maybe it was days. Time seemed to lose all meaning in the confines of her cell. Amanda was jolted from her stupor by the sound of her cell door opening. "Blackwell," a guard called out, "you have a visitor." Confused and wary, Amanda followed the guard to the visitation area. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw who was waiting for her behind the thick glass partition. "Robert," she breathed, sinking into the chair across from him. Robert Chambers looked different from the last time she'd seen him. The anger and bitterness that had clouded his features were gone, replaced by a calm determination. "Hello, Amanda," he said, his voice crackling slightly through the intercom. "I thought it was time we had a real conversation." Amanda nodded, unsure of what to say. How do you speak to a man whose life you destroyed? I want you to know, Robert continued, that I don't hate you anymore. I did for a long time. But watching you stand up there and confess, seeing you willingly face the consequences of your actions, it changed something. Amanda felt tears welling up in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Robert, for everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I truly am sorry. Robert nodded, a sad smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I know, and you're right, it doesn't change the past, but it does change the future. Your confession, it's given me my life back. I'm free now, truly free, for the first time in over a decade. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. So what now? Amanda asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Robert leaned forward, his eyes intense. Now, we work on making things right. Your confession was just the beginning, Amanda. There are still innocent people out there, people you helped put away. They deserve justice too. Amanda felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. What are you suggesting? I'm working with the Innocence Project, Robert explained. We're going through all of your old cases, looking for others who might have been wrongfully convicted. I want your help, Amanda. You know these cases better than anyone. You can help us set things right. Amanda's mind raced with the possibilities. It wouldn't erase her crimes, wouldn't undo the damage she'd done, but it was a chance to do some good, to use her knowledge to help, instead of harm. Yes, she said, her voice stronger now. Yes, I'll help. Whatever you need. Robert smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. Good. I'll be in touch with the details. And Amanda, thank you. For telling the truth, for facing the consequences. It means more than you know. As Robert stood to leave, Amanda felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time since this ordeal began, she felt a glimmer of true hope. The next few months passed in a blur of legal documents, case files, and long hours poring over details she'd once used to secure convictions. Amanda threw herself into the work with a fervor that surprised even her. Each case she helped overturn, each innocent person freed, felt like a small step towards redemption. One day, as Amanda sat in her cell reviewing a particularly complex case, a guard appeared at her door. Blackwell, you have a call from your lawyer. Puzzled, Amanda followed the guard to the phone bank. She picked up the receiver, her heart racing. Hello? Amanda, it's Jack. Her uncle's voice came through, tinged with an emotion she couldn't quite place. Uncle Jack? What's going on? There was a pause. Then Jack spoke, his voice thick with emotion. We did it, Amanda. The Jensen case. The judge just overturned the conviction based on the new evidence we uncovered. He's being released today. Amanda felt her knees go weak. The Jensen case had been one of her first major convictions, a case she'd won through a combination of manipulated evidence and coerced testimony. It had launched her career and haunted her conscience for years. He's free? Amanda whispered, hardly daring to believe it. Yes, Jack confirmed. And Amanda, there's more. The judge, he mentioned your cooperation, your efforts to right the wrongs. He's recommending a review of your sentence. Amanda sank to the floor, her back against the wall, as the implications of Jack's words sank in. A review could mean a reduced sentence, could mean... Thank you, Uncle Jack, she managed to say, her voice choked with emotion. For everything. As she hung up the phone, Amanda felt a surge of emotion she couldn't quite name. Joy for Jensen, relief at the prospect of a reduced sentence, but also a deep, abiding sense of responsibility. This was just the beginning. There were more cases to review, more wrongs to right. Back in her cell, Amanda stood at the small window, looking out at the slice of sky visible between the high prison walls. For the first time in years, she felt truly alive, truly purposeful. The path to redemption was long and arduous, but she was on it, one step at a time. As the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Amanda made a silent vow. She would continue this work, whether from inside these walls or out. She would dedicate her life to undoing the damage she had done, to restoring justice where she had once perverted it. The reckoning had come, and Amanda Blackwell had faced it head-on. Now, in its wake, she was forging a new path, one of truth, justice, and redemption. It wouldn't be easy, but as she watched the last rays of sunlight fade from the sky, Amanda knew with certainty that it would be worth it. The buzz of the prison intercom jolted Amanda awake. She blinked, disoriented for a moment, before remembering where she was. 3 years had passed since her sentencing, each day a step on her long journey towards redemption. "Blackwell," a guard's voice crackled through the speaker. "You've got a visitor. Special clearance. Get ready." Amanda's heart raced as she quickly made herself presentable. Special clearance could only mean one thing. Robert was back, likely with news about another case. As she was led to the visitation room, Amanda couldn't help but marvel at how much had changed. The woman who had entered these walls, broken and guilt-ridden, was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, more determined, and paradoxically more free than she'd ever been outside these walls. Robert was waiting for her, a thick file folder on the table in front of him. His face was grim, and Amanda felt a knot form in her stomach. "Robert," she greeted him, sliding into the chair across from him. "What's wrong? Is it bad news about the Thompson case?" Robert shook his head, pushing the folder towards her. "It's not Thompson. It's, well, see for yourself." With trepidation, Amanda opened the folder. Her breath caught as she recognized the name on the file. Michael Reeves. "Oh God," she whispered, memories flooding back. Michael Reeves had been one of her earliest cases as a prosecutor. A young man accused of a brutal murder, convicted largely on circumstantial evidence and a coerced confession. It was one of the cases that had launched her career, and one that had always nagged at her conscience. "We've been reviewing the case," Robert said, his voice gentle but firm. "Amanda, it's bad. Really bad. The confession was clearly coerced, the evidence was mishandled, and there's DNA that was never tested." Amanda felt the blood drain from her face. "He's innocent, isn't he?" Robert nodded solemnly. "We believe so, yes. But Amanda, there's more. The real killer. We think he went on to murder 3 more women over the next decade." The implications hit Amanda like a physical blow. Not only had she helped convict an innocent man, but her actions had allowed the real killer to remain free, to take more lives. I don't know what to say," Amanda stammered, her hands shaking as she leafed through the file. "How do I even begin to make this right?" Robert leaned forward, his eyes intense. "We need your help, Amanda. Your testimony, your insider knowledge of how the case was handled. It's the key to freeing Michael and catching the real killer." Amanda nodded, a sense of resolve settling over her. "Of course, whatever it takes. But Robert, how do I face him? How do I look Michael Reeves in the eye, knowing what I've done?" "With honesty and humility," Robert replied. "The same way you've faced everything else since your confession. It won't be easy, Amanda, but it's necessary. For Michael, for the victims' families, and for you." As Robert left, promising to return with more details, Amanda sat in stunned silence. The weight of her past actions, the lives she had ruined, pressed down on her with renewed force. Back in her cell, Amanda paced restlessly, her mind racing. She thought of Michael Reeves, robbed of years of his life, of the women who had died because the real killer remained free, of the families torn apart by her blind ambition. Unable to contain her turmoil any longer, Amanda requested to make a phone call. Minutes later, she found herself facing the prison payphone, her fingers trembling as she dialed a familiar number. "Hello?" Rachel's voice came through, warm and familiar. "Rach," Amanda said, her voice cracking. I need to talk." Over the next hour, Amanda poured out everything: the Reeves case, the devastating implications, her overwhelming guilt. Rachel listened patiently, offering words of support and comfort. "Amanda," Rachel said finally, "you can't change the past, but you're doing everything in your power to make it right now. That counts for something." "Does it?" Amanda asked, doubt creeping into her voice. "How can anything make up for the lives I've ruined?" "It can't," Rachel admitted. "Not entirely. But Amanda, think of the lives you're saving now, the wrongs you're righting. That matters. It has to matter." As she hung up the phone, Amanda felt a renewed sense of purpose. Rachel was right. She couldn't change the past, but she could shape the future, starting with Michael Reeves. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Amanda worked tirelessly with Robert and his team, providing detailed accounts of how she had handled the Reeves case, including the ethical lines she had crossed. Each revelation was painful, a fresh reminder of her past misdeeds. But Amanda pushed through, driven by the need to make things right. Finally, the day came for her to give her official testimony. As she was led into the courtroom, Amanda felt a mix of dread and determination. Her eyes scanned the room, landing on a man she recognized from the case files. Michael Reeves, older now, his face lined with the years he had lost. As Amanda took the stand, she forced herself to meet Michael's gaze. The pain and anger she saw there nearly broke her, but she steeled herself. This wasn't about her comfort. This was about justice, long delayed but finally served. "Please state your name for the record," the judge instructed. "Amanda Blackwell," she replied, her voice steady. "Ms. Blackwell, you were the prosecuting attorney in the original case against Michael Reeves, is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you're here today to testify that your handling of that case was improper?" Amanda took a deep breath. "More than improper, Your Honor. It was unethical, illegal, and a grave miscarriage of justice." A murmur went through the courtroom. Amanda caught sight of Robert, nodding encouragingly from the gallery. Over the next few hours, Amanda laid bare every detail of her misconduct in the Reeves case. She explained how she had pressured detectives to coerce a confession, how she had buried exculpatory evidence, how she had manipulated witness testimony to fit her narrative. With each revelation, Amanda felt a weight lifting from her shoulders, even as she saw the shock and anger on the faces of those in the courtroom. When she finally finished, the silence was deafening. "Ms. Blackwell," the judge said finally, "your testimony today is disturbing, to say the least, but it is also crucial in rectifying a terrible injustice. Thank you for your honesty." As Amanda was led from the stand, her eyes met Michael's once more. This time, among the pain and anger, she saw something else, a glimmer of something that might, someday, become forgiveness. The hearing concluded with the judge ordering Michael's immediate release and a full investigation into the real killer. As the courtroom erupted in a mix of cheers and shocked exclamations, Amanda was led back to a holding area. She sat there, emotionally and physically drained, when the door opened. To her surprise, it was Michael Reeves who entered, flanked by guards. "Mr. Reeves," Amanda said, standing quickly. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry, seems woefully inadequate." Michael was silent for a long moment, studying her. Then, to Amanda's shock, he extended his hand. "What you did today," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "it doesn't erase the past, but it's given me back my future. Thank you for finally telling the truth." Amanda shook his hand, tears streaming down her face. "I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make this right, Mr. Reeves. I promise you that." As Michael left to begin his first taste of freedom in over a decade, Amanda sank back into her chair. The road ahead was still long, the price of redemption high, but for the first time, she felt like it might actually be within reach. Weeks later, Amanda sat in the warden's office, listening in disbelief as he explained that, in light of her continued cooperation and the impact of her testimony, her sentence was being commuted. She would be released on probation, with the condition that she continue her work with the Innocence Project. As Amanda stepped out of the prison gates, taking her first breath of free air in years, she felt a complex mix of emotions: relief, anxiety, determination. Rachel was waiting for her, arms open wide. "Welcome back," Rachel said, enveloping her in a hug. Amanda hugged her back fiercely, then stepped away, her face serious. "This isn't the end, Rach. It's just the beginning. I've got a lot of work to do." Rachel nodded, understanding. "I know, and I'll be with you every step of the way." As they drove away from the prison, Amanda looked back at the imposing walls that had been her home for the past 3 years. She had entered those walls a broken woman, crushed by the weight of her sins. She left them stronger, more determined, with a clear purpose. The price of redemption was high, paid in years of freedom, in painful truths, in lives forever altered. But as Amanda looked toward the future, she knew it was a price she would gladly keep paying, one case at a time, for as long as it took, because in the end, the truth really had set her free, not from prison, but from the cage of lies and ambition she had built around herself. The road ahead was long, but for the first time in years, Amanda Blackwell was truly, completely free.